I think of what Paul endured as he stated in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 28. He said the Jews gave him 39 stripes on 5 different occasions. He said on 3 different occasions he was beaten with rods. He was stoned once. He had 3 shipwrecks. Robbers threatened him. He had perils in the wilderness, the sea, and the city, and from false converts. He said he was hungry. He was thirsty often. He said he was cold. And beyond all of that was the daily concern over all the churches and their well-being. Talk about dying to self and taking up his cross. Paul did it. Paul did it. In our text, Jesus wanted the crowd to count the cost before following him. And to take up the cross, one must be ready to endure the shame, the reproach, the humiliation, the suffering, the hatred, the isolation that comes with it. So yes, the cross is a way to execute people. So daily the disciple must execute his or her will and live out God's will in our lives. It may be painful to slay this old selfish desire, but there is no discipleship without crucifying the old man. The old man. I wonder, Christian, are you a disciple this morning? Are you a disciple? If so, you will deny yourself, or you will surrender, and you will take up your cross, or you will die to your own will. You see, God has a plan for your life this morning. Everybody in here, from the youngest baby to the oldest and all in between, God has a plan for your life today. You also may have plans, but He has something big. But if you do not take up that cross to crucify your plans, then you're going to miss His. And I submit to you this morning that His plans are much better than your plans for your life. I can promise you that. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." For perhaps, right where you sit this morning, you're thinking, "I hate my job." Then you need to deny yourself and take up your cross, for God says, "I have plans to give you a future and a hope." Maybe you're sitting there thinking this morning, "I have no purpose. I have no fulfillment in life." Then you need to deny yourself, take up your cross, for God says, "I have plans to give you a future and a hope." Maybe you would say this morning, "I hate my life." Then you need to deny yourself, take up your cross, for God says, "I have plans to give you a future and a hope" this morning. Maybe you don't know which direction to go or what decision to make. Deny yourself, take up the cross, for God says, "I have plans to give you a future and a hope." You will not and you cannot experience peace and fulfillment as long as you seek to pacify your old self. Your old self. We must take up our cross. I wonder, have you and are you doing that? Jesus told the crowd, "Whosoever will come after me must deny himself and take up his cross." There is a cost for discipleship. The third condition for true discipleship is to follow. The verse says, obey who or follow who? Jesus. That's who we're to follow. Far too many Christians today are following the world. They dress like the world. They go the places the world goes. They do the same things that the world does. But Jesus says, follow me. Follow me. If you want to be a disciple. You see, some don't mind following the Lord while they're at church on Sunday morning. But they go a different direction on Monday. And I don't know who in here has worked in the public before, but I have worked mostly in the public, customer-related jobs since I was a teenager. And I'm here to tell you this morning that some of the worst customers you can have are professing Christians. And it ought not to be so. It ought not to be so. I had an encounter with a Christian this past week. Christians away from the church can be some of the loudest, some of the most demanding, some of the most ungrateful, and some of the most sour people walking the face of the earth. It ought not to be so. And it wouldn't be the case if Christians were following Jesus Christ. It wouldn't be so. He's calling us to follow Him all the time. In the grocery store, on the job, in the home, wherever we may be. We should walk in total obedience and submission to Him. I wonder, are you committed to Jesus Christ? Or do other things come before He does in life? He says, follow me. Follow me. When is the last time you examined your priorities, oh Christian? Does He come first? If you're a true disciple, then you will follow Jesus. Following Jesus is obedience to Him and to His Word and to His will. That's what following Jesus is about. Today, if we could catch a glimpse into glory and see Peter this morning, he would speak to us and he would tell us, he would say, you know, I was fishing alongside the Sea of Galilee one day with my brother Andrew, and Jesus came walking by. He said to us, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. We left our nets immediately, and we followed Him. And my life has not been the same since. Peter would tell you and me, he would say, you follow Jesus too. It's worth it all. I strongly believe this morning that if not only Peter, but if Andrew, if John, if James, if Mark, if Philip, and Paul could speak, they would encourage us. They would say, you follow Jesus, it's worth it all. Not only the apostles, but if all the saints of God, including some of your family and my family, who are in heaven today, could testify to us this morning at HealingSprings Baptist Church, they would charge us. They would say, you keep following Jesus. They would say, it's worth it all today. We're cheering you on. You keep going forward. You keep in that race. You keep fighting. You keep serving. You keep keeping on. They would. We pondered some questions at the beginning of the message. First, can you be a Christian and not be a disciple? Yes, you can, but it's not God's will. His desire is for all Christians to be a disciple. Secondly, we said, are there many Christians but few disciples? Yes, far more disciples are needed today. I wonder, the last question, which are you? Christian, disciple, or neither one? And only you can answer that between you and the Lord this morning. Perhaps with that question, if you were to answer neither, you're not a Christian, you're not a disciple. As we prepare for the invitation in a few moments, this entire message has been focused on the call to discipleship. But in order to be a disciple, you first have to respond to the call to salvation. Being born again, getting saved, surrendering your life to Christ for the first time is far more than just simply praying a few words at some point in your life. True salvation is a commitment to leave the old life behind and to follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. Peter and Andrew dropped their nets. They followed Jesus. If you are saved, then there should be a visible change, a new direction in your life. Where Jesus is where your desire will be as well. Have you ever surrendered your life to Christ? If not, won't you consider doing that today? Won't you consider doing that today? Jesus went all the way to the cross. If you follow Him, guess what? There will be trials. There will be sorrows. There will be suffering. Jesus didn't come to make life easy, but to make men great. I read that during World War II, B-17 bombers made long flights from the U.S. mainland to the Pacific Islands. And when they landed there, the planes were met by a Jeep bearing the sign, "Follow me, follow me." That little Jeep guided the giant planes to their assigned spaces in the parking areas. One pilot, by his own admission, who was not a religious man, made an insightful comment. He said, "That little Jeep, with its quaint sign, always reminds me of Jesus. He was a lowly peasant, but the giant men and women of our time will be lost without His direction." No doubt there's a cost involved in following Jesus, but Jesus says to every one of you this morning, "Follow me, follow me." Are you following Him today? Now, in conclusion, Jesus summons the crowd to come in closer. And He tells them, "Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Follow me. You see, Jesus sifts out the true Christians from the fair weather followers. At the close of life, questions of these will not be, how much have you gotten, but how much have you given. Not how much have you won, but how much have you done. Not how much have you saved, but how much have you sacrificed. It will be how much have you loved and served, not how much were you honored. We must surrender ourselves completely to Him. We must identify with Him in suffering and death. We must follow Him obediently wherever that might lead. You might say the cost is too great. The sacrifice is more than I can bear. Well, Jesus says, whosoever will come after me. Whosoever includes you. Now, to the Christian this morning, I want to mention to you, perhaps you're here and you're not saved. You're on the way, you are saved, I'm sorry. Perhaps you're here and you are saved. And you're on the way to heaven as a Christian. I ask you, Christian, are you a disciple? Are you forsaking the world to follow Christ? Can you honestly say that you're a true disciple? I invite you to come this morning, dedicating your life to Christ. And you say, you know, Jeffrey, I don't want to come sit on a pew Sunday morning and then get up and that be it. I want God to use me however He sees fit to bring glory to His name. And I'm willing to follow you wherever He leads. I want to be a disciple. We talked about tickets being costly. There will be a cost involved in following Christ. If I didn't tell you that, I wouldn't be honest. There's a cost. There's a cost involved. Now, to the disciple this morning, perhaps you're here and you consider yourself a disciple. This means that you are constantly asking, what can I do for you, Lord? What can I do next, Lord? This means you're not only growing in your walk daily with the Lord, but you're helping other Christians to grow and disciple them so that they can become true disciples for the Lord. Are you doing that, old disciple? Are you not only telling with your lips, but showing others in your lifestyle how to deny self, how to take up their cross, and how to follow Christ? I challenge you to consider seriously what we brought forth today. I'm asking Brother Denton and Donna Jean if you'll go to the instruments there. And this word this morning is for everyone. No one's been excluded today. You're one or the other. You either consider yourself a Christian, you consider yourself a disciple, or you have to sit there and say that you're neither one. You're neither one. First, if you're not saved, I hope you'll come this morning, trusting Jesus as your Savior, asking forgiveness, and going, dropping whatever it is that you're doing, and following the Lord going forward. If you're a Christian here, you need a more closer walk with Jesus. You want to be a disciple, you come this morning. Perhaps you're here and you consider yourself a disciple, but you really haven't been discipling others the way that we're called to do. Helping others. You know, a lot of the problems why, we complain about children and grandchildren and so forth, the burden is bearing on the adults. We're not discipling them on how to live, on to read the Bible, to pray, and to grow. So if you start complaining about children not being in church, the burden lies on the adults for not bringing them, teaching them on how to live. So let's stand and sing our invitation. If God has spoken to you, you come.